Hey there, hope all is right in your world. These are finite. There's only a certain amount to go around. And with autographs, they're getting harder and harder to collect with baseball Hall of Famers. They're blowing up in popularity, especially for the 50s and 60s and the golden age of baseball card collecting. I've decided to key in on 4 Hall of Famers that I'm going to share with you today. And I've used the PSA reports to try to guide myself through the different ways in which to purchase them at a reasonable price. Let's talk about it. Carl Yastrzemski, easily one of the greatest hitters of all time. 3,400 hits, 450 home runs, one of the all-time greats. And so in looking at this card here, it was something that I definitely had to add to my collection. The 1960 Rookie Stars rookie card is an iconic card. You would probably find this in most vintage collectors' top 100 lists. And so getting it signed is also something that's pretty decent to get. He still signs at shows, but the problem is he's charging $200 for cards now to get them signed, with another $40 to $50 on top of that if you want to get an inscription like Hall of Fame or whatever you want. And so that's something that I had to take into account as well. So this card right here runs about 300 USD. You can get it for almost the cost that it would cost you to go and get it signed, get it slabbed, buy the card. In fact, it's actually not that bad of a deal. And so when you look at the population reports, that's the one where it gets a little iffy. There are over 11,000 of these that have been graded by PSA. That's not even counting SGC or any of the other companies. And out of that, there's just a smidge under 600 of these that have been autographed. But when you actually do that number and put them together, it's only 5.26% of the total population. So 5% of the population of this card are autographed by him. For those of you that are able to go and get his autograph, if I were you, I would be going and buying a really nice copy of this and getting it signed. Those things are going to go through the roof if they haven't already. Bill Mazeroski, one of the greatest second basemen who ever played the game. 8 Gold Gloves, and probably one of the greatest home runs ever hit in the 1960 World Series, Game 7 at Forbes Field. Unbelievable home run, cemented his legacy for the rest of time. And so anyways, Bill Mazeroski is actually a pretty interesting player for me. He's somebody that I came to know in the early 90s. I was in a rotisserie baseball league back then, now known as Fantasy Baseball. And every year up here in Canada, the Bill Mazeroski annual guide would come out for baseball. And we didn't have Baseball America back then. Baseball Weekly had just started for the USA Today, but that was pretty much our only way of getting in-depth information, along with those rookie prospects at the end where they gave a farm report for every single team. Now it's interesting, Bill actually only gave his name to the magazine. He didn't really have anything to do with it, but that's where I knew the name from. And then as I backtrack, I certainly found out all about his exploits as a second baseman and definitely that home run. So when I collected this one right here, this was nice because it has the Hall of Fame signature on the bottom. And at the same time, his autograph has degraded a little bit over the years. And so this one was fairly nice. I love the fact that it was right across the middle. There are quite a few of them out there. You can afford to be picky, but it's one that I decided to add. Once again, through affordability and the fact there's less than 500 of them. That's not too bad. Carlton Fisk, one of the greatest catchers who ever lived. Red Sox hero and legend, 376 career home runs, led catchers and home runs in history for the longest time that I could remember as a kid. And of course, the 1975 World Series Game 6 home run. Who could forget that one? Anyways, of course, what I did when I started looking at Carlton's cards was I went right to the 1972 Topps Rookie Stars card. The one where he's pictured with 2 other guys that I totally couldn't tell you who they are. Anyways, looking at that, you can actually find that there are about 8,400 of those cards that have been graded total, and about 375 of them have been signed by Carlton and authenticated by PSA. The problem is, of course, like everything else, it's a little bit outside of my price range. So I decided, of course, to go and look at the next year. And you look at the 1973 Topps, Of course, it has that awesome rookie cup in the bottom, like we all love. And the numbers actually show you a little bit of a different angle. Of those cards, there are just over 2,000 of them graded, 2,200 roughly. And of all those cards, only 92 are authenticated autographs by PSA. Now, I know there are raw cards out there that are autoed and everything, but when collecting these, I've been burned before, and I'm not going to be burned again. The best way that I can do it is try and at least get it authenticated by a third-party company. And so I decided to go towards this one. And with only 100 or less of these existing, this is a nice rare card to add to my collection. Pee Wee Reese, 1957 tops, and the last Hall of Famer that I'm going to talk to you about today. So Pee Wee Reese, yes, his stats aren't as high as some of the other greats that we have in the game, but he was a 10-time Gold Glover. He was the captain of the Brooklyn Dodgers and winning the World Series in 1955 after being to the World Series 7 times in his career, a monumental player that way. But also, we all know him as the leader of the Brooklyn Dodgers that brought Jackie Robinson into the team. So when Jackie came in, we all know that Pee Wee Reese accepted him publicly, took pictures with him, and pretty much told everybody to fall in line. At least that's what the story goes with, and it's a monumental piece for baseball history. And so collecting Pee Wee Reese was certainly a player that I wanted to get. He was affordable for sure, and when it comes to playing days cards, you can actually find them at a decent price. So the 1957 tops, there's actually less than 50 of these that have been autographed and authenticated by PSA, coupled with the fact that there are about 2,200 of these graded, and you're looking at about 2% of the population there. If you look on to 1958 tops, his last card, it's about the same, less than 50 autographed. If you go down the list, 1955 Bowman, 1953 tops, and then of course the 1953 Bowman, his iconic horizontal card, all of those have less and less and less autographed. If you add them all together, the one thing that you're going to find is that there are less than 200 Pee Wee Reese autographs from the 1950s that have been authenticated by PSA. That's rare. And for a player of his stature, he's somebody that Hall of Fame collectors are going to want to add to their collections. So I jumped on it. It's something that I really enjoyed adding. I love the card, 1957 tops. It's just a gorgeous set, beautiful pictures. Hopefully you'll think about it and maybe add one to your collection too. We all know that the golden age of cards, the 1950s and 60s for vintage card collectors, that is the way that most people like to go. They're extremely popular and people absolutely love that era. Unfortunately, there are only so many cards and they can kind of get boring after a while. And so what they're doing now is they're deviating and they're trying to find the same cards, but autographed, but authenticated by either PSA or another third-party company. And so with the popularity growing, you have to find a way to try and keep this affordable. And keeping it affordable is just trying to look outside of the usual norms, not looking at rookie cards, looking at second and third year cards, looking at players that may be a little bit less popular, but if you look at those population reports, you can certainly find some gems, just like a major player like Pee Wee Reese did for me. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any other players where you've noticed that their pop numbers are really low and you'd like to tell me about it, put them in the comments below. I'll respond as soon as I can. So that's it for me for now. Take care, and I'll see you down the road.